Happy morning. Today we are going to discuss about the EEG recording setup in clinical perspective, and I hope this will be very useful for you compared to the theoretical session. If this session is going to be a practical one from a YouTube channel, so please look at this and get the benefits.
For your setup, you will need the following: measuring tape, new prep exfoliating gel, paper towels, alcohol wipes, 4 adhesive rings, and a syringe filled with conductive gel. The first step is to measure your participant's head. Start measuring from the center of the forehead and make sure you measure the part of the head with the widest circumference. This measurement will dictate what size cap the participant requires. All caps have a label showing the size and the centimeter range associated with that size. Before putting on the cap, we'll need to attach the 4 external electrodes. First, clean all 4 areas with new prep gel. Clean behind both ears, next to and underneath the left eye. Then, wipe off the new prep gel using alcohol wipes. Now, attach the adhesive rings to the external electrodes. Then, apply a small amount of conductive gel to the electrode and peel off the white covering. When attaching electrodes 1 and 2, make sure that they're on top of the mastoid bone to minimize interference to these reference electrodes. Attach the 3rd external electrode next to the participant's left eye and the 4th one underneath the same eye. Now that you've put on the external electrodes, there's just one more thing to do before putting on the electrode cap. Measure from in between the participant's eyebrows to the back of the head. This will help you when positioning the cap. Once the participant is wearing the cap, make sure that it is on as straight as possible. Then, measure the distance between the middle of the eyebrows and the edge of the cap. In this case, it should be 3.3 centimeters, 1/10 of the previous measurement. And don't forget to untuck this poorly placed label so that it doesn't get in the way of the IZ channel. You are now ready to attach the electrodes. Do one side at a time, start at the back of the head and attach the electrodes in the same order as they are ordered on the cable to minimize tangling. Carefully poke the tip of the syringe all the way to the participant's scalp and gently move it around to push hair out of the way. Start to administer gel as you pull the syringe out to make sure that there's no empty gap between the scalp and the electrode. Then repeat this 64 times until the entire cap is completed. The next step is to connect the external electrodes to the amplifier, as well as the 2 electrode sets. Connect the amplifier to the battery and switch it on. Once all the cables are connected to the amplifier, make sure you tape them to the participant's shoulder and ensure that there's a fair amount of slack so that there'll be no pulling on the cables even if the participant moves their head. The first step is to carefully remove the cap from the participant's head and then peel off the external electrodes. Never pull on the cables to do this. Instead, grab the head of the electrodes or use the little flap on the adhesive rings. Also, be careful not to pull your participant's hair. When removing the adhesive rings from the electrodes, again, make sure you hold onto the head of the electrode, not the cable. The same applies when removing the electrodes from the cap. Never pull on the cables. We're now ready to clean the electrodes. Fill the white basin with 2 to 3 centimetres worth of distilled water. When cleaning the external electrodes, gently rub them with your finger to ensure that all the gel has come off, but be careful not to scratch them with your fingernail. Clean the electrode. Can be cleaned with regular much Dettol dishwashing liquid is provided. If you that might be useful to know. Plug in the battery to charge before you start the cleanup.
So in the previous video we discussed about the placement of electrodes, that is 10-20 ratio, in the 10-20 ratio, and now in this video we are going to look after how the digital values are taken using the previous setup. Okay, now we will have a glance.
We're now able to check the impedance, which is the contact level between the electrodes and the skin, using software. Often we use an eye movement calibration task as the first task. The instructions say, when the square changes colour, please blink. Here you can see the EEG during that task. This EEG was recorded during horizontal eye movements. Resting EEG is often recorded before the task.
Here is the reading of the different electrodes.
The EEG we can see here was recorded during an eyes closed resting task. We can see some alpha activity in this recording. This is EEG recorded during an eyes open resting task. You can see blinks in the top electrodes. The experimental task is then delivered.
Brain, and it is
in this task, attention variation was required. You can see the on-screen instructions. This EEG was recorded during focused attention.
Attentions. Okay. The input is provided through the vision.
Then a rating of the attention level was made by the research participant. And the next trial began. Here we see EEG recorded during low attention. When the task is over, we remove all the equipment and thank the research participant.